join me in the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dora, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Kemper? Commissioner Kemper?
She called your name. Oh, excuse me, I don't have anything on that. Yeah,
I
I'm
probably
here.
did a little bit out of order. Commissioner Holloway?
Present.
Commissioner Sterling?
Here.
And Commissioner Kehoe is not ready yet.
So there are three of us here. Candy hasn't shown up yet, but I expect she'll be here. Could we have the introductions to the audience, please? Would you like to start, Carol?
Carol Bragg, CFO for Clackamas River Water.
Joel Comerick, Project Director, Lake Oswego Tiger Water Partnership.
David Blair, repair.
Keith Miller, Sunrise Water Authority.
Rob Cummings, Clackamas River Water.
Bill Schulenberg, customer.
Suzanne Lorenzo, Clackamas River Water.
Dennis Colmeyer, City of Tiger.
Bob George, Clackamas River Water.
Adam Bjornstead, Clackamas River Water.
Gary Kerr, ratepayer.
Leonard Waldemar, ratepayer and also on Oak Lodge Water District.
Paula Harbarger, Oregonian.
George Payne, Oak Lodge Water District.
Warren Mitchell, ratepayer.
Al Jones, concerned citizen.
Don Vineyard, Clackamas River Water.
Taylor Campbell, Clackamas River Water.
Lee Moore, Clackamas River Water.
We're just finishing introductions. Cindy?
Cindy Lewis Wolf from North Clackamas Citizens Association.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is a presentation by Mr. Joel Comerick from the City of Lake Oswego. Good evening, Joel.
Good evening, Commissioner Kemper and Commissioner Holloway and Sterling. Again, Joel Comerick, Project Director for Lake Oswego Tiger Water Partnership, but also a new ratepayer customer of Clackamas River Water just in the last year.
What area do you live in, sir?
I live just north of Webster Road and east, I guess it is a piece, so on Vista Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully after Lake Road was all you done.
Actually, no.
Please note that Commissioner Kehoe has arrived and she'll take over. Joel, just start.
Great. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight about our project. I understand I have about a half hour. I'm going to try and keep it short to be able to provide an opportunity for you to ask any questions, should you have those. So it starts with a little discussion about Lake Oswego's water supply system, which is close to 45 years old now, built in the mid to late 1960s. And we've been really exploring what are we going to do about our water supply system. We've been doing this for more than a decade now. We know it's wearing out. We know it's going to take quite a bit of time and money to upsize it, modernize it. And so we really started this project back in about 2004, 2005, when we started discussing with our council, what are we going to do? And about that same time, we had been, well, actually since the 1970s, we've been providing water to Tigard on a wholesale basis. And Tigard approached us and said, you know, we understand you're looking at how to modernize and upgrade and expand your facilities for the next century. And oh, by the way, we've been looking to secure a source of water, a supply of water for our ratepayers and customers for quite a while. We're tired of buying water from, I'm sorry.
Before you go further, what was the volume of water that you were providing to Tiger?
In about, when I first came to the city in 1994-95, we were supplying about 4.5 million gallons a day on average.
All right, thank you. I'll wait until you're through asking that.
So we decided that we would explore costs and benefits of a possible partnership whereby Tigard would buy into Lake Oswego's existing water supply system and then also help us pay for an expansion and modernization of our existing system. And in exchange for that participation in the costs, we would provide a committed amount of water to Tigard. And at that time also, Tigard had recently executed a 10-year contract with the city of Portland, which expires in 2016, but it had a 5-year advance notice provision associated with it, which has come and gone in June of 2011. At the end of that study, which took about 2 years to complete, the conclusions were that both cities would benefit significantly in terms of costs and also long-term viability of the expanded facility, and that relative to other options that we explored, Tigard looked at 4 different supply options. Lake Oswego's options really were to partner with another city, whether it was Tigard or another city, or go it alone. And in the partnership scenario, both cities would benefit substantially, and their ratepayers would as well. So some of the reasoning behind this, again, are aging facilities. Tigard wanted ownership in some facilities so that they could have better control of rates rather than have to buy it on the wholesale market. It would supply sufficient capacity for Lake Oswego's long-term needs as well as Tigard's. And it provides some other benefits in terms of redundancy of supply and operational issues related to being able to have access now to more than double the amount of storage that Lake Oswego has alone, but also it provides access to the city of Tigard's aquifer storage and recovery system. And it provides us an opportunity to improve emergency response, not only locally but regionally, by building a system that now has the capacity to move water potentially between all 4 of the major regional supply sources in the Portland metro area. So a little bit about the system improvements. Again, starting in the lower right-hand corner of the slide, you see our intake currently located at the end of Portland Avenue in Gladstone, about 0.8 of a mile upstream from the confluence with the Willamette. From there, water is diverted through some permits that we acquired from the state of Oregon back in 1967 and then later in 1973, allowing us to divert up to 38 million gallons a day of water from that particular location. We pump that water through a 27-inch diameter pipeline underneath the Willamette River to our water treatment plant, which is located just north of Mary Eshung Park in West Lynn. That plant is currently a direct filtration plant and rated at 16 million gallons a day. From there, the treated water is pumped through about 35,000 feet of 24-inch diameter pipeline to our Waluga Reservoir, located up toward the upper left-hand corner of the slide. And then again, back in the 70s, the city of Tigard constructed some pipelines that allow them to take supply from that reservoir, that terminal reservoir, and pump it up into their distribution system to their customers. So all of these facilities were built in the mid to late 60s, as I mentioned, under a Department of Housing and Urban Development grant. We built most of this for about $5 million. Quite a bargain. Those days are gone. Don't get any money from the federal government anymore. Got to do it all on our own. In 2008, again, as I mentioned, after about a 2-year study, the 2 cities came together and signed an agreement that establishes Lake Oswego as the managing partner in the partnership. So we're responsible to essentially deliver the project by June 2016, and Tigard's going to help pay for it. But again, significant benefits, environmental benefits in terms of doing 2 separate supply expansion projects on different sources, which would have been the result had we not come together in a partnership. Provides the supply reliability, as I mentioned. Economies of scale, basically Lake Oswego, if they had to have done this on their own, it would cost us probably another $50 million to our ratepayers. So the economies of scale was a significant benefit. We immediately doubled the rate base over which the costs are spread. I know that you're thinking about doing this in your potential agreement with Sunrise, so you can see the benefits of coming together and providing a larger customer base upon which to spread the costs of these expensive improvements. And they're not cheap anymore. And it allows us to beneficially use the water that the state permitted us to use again back in the 60s. One of the things that this partnership project also does is proactively implement some of the strategies that are currently under development as part of the state's integrated water resource strategy. And this partnership project will help us better manage the potential effects of climate change. Again, as I mentioned, we now have access, the partnership has access to more than 50 million gallons of stored water in reservoirs. We have, and this is a graphic of Tigard's aquifer storage and recovery system. We now have access to that supply of water. So if you're familiar with aquifer storage and recovery, basically we're taking water from the surface water source in the winter when it's plentiful. We're pumping it underground into an underground reservoir, and then in the summer when stream flows are typically low and we're concerned about fish and recreation and all those kinds of things, we have the ability to draw on both our in-system distribution storage, but also Tigard's aquifer storage and recovery system to offload demand on the river and draw it out of these reservoirs. So,
And Joel, excuse me for interrupting, but what do you think the Tigard ASR capacity is, as that will be determined?
I'll look to my partner here, Dennis Kohlermeyer's in the audience. He can tell you about that.
We store over 200 million gallons of water, and we can produce 6 MGD a day for about a 90-day period.
And so, and you're actually putting it in and using the bubble effect so that whatever is in there is not leaching in, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And that was how much?
There's over 200 million gallons of storage, and we can produce 6 MGD a day for about a 90-day period.
That's great.
And a consumption rate of 4.5 to 5 million a day then?
Oh no, our average day is somewhere near 8 or 9 now.
8 or 9?
Yeah.
Oh, I misunderstood you then.
Well, you were asking me, I think, about what Tigard, what we supplied to Tigard when we started supplying them from about the 70s on, and the peak of that supply was about 4.5 million gallons a day.
Okay, right, that's correct.
Right.
So 4.5 to 5 from Lake Oswego, plus you're producing 8 to 9 a day?
Our peak day, we just had a peak day of 11 MGD.
So you're looking for 16 to 18 total needs then?
Our master plan would take us up to about 20.
Thank you.
And what's the quality of that water?
It's drinking water quality, as far as I know. They don't retreat it or anything. It goes right from the
Rechlorinated.
The rechlorinated, and then it's going right into the distribution system. Some benefits there in terms of the state's integrated water resources strategy. As many of you know, particularly you, Barbara, and Commissioner Holloway, you've attended the Clackamas River Water Providers meetings, and so you know that we're all of us, all the Clackamas providers, are actively working with several state agencies and Portland State University to understand the watershed better, understand the threats to the watershed, and how to best mitigate and manage those. So we really have, I think, a long history of stewardship in the basin. You're probably also aware that we're right now going through the municipal extensions process for our water rights, and that those under the new regulations at the state were required to maintain the persistence of endangered fish, and so all those extended permits contain conditions to do that. And basically, it says that if stream flows fall below a certain level, we'll reduce our withdrawals in proportion to those shortfalls in order to maintain the persistence of endangered fish. Both cities, Lake Oswego and Tigard, have approved water management and conservation plans. Quite frankly, Tigard did not even have to prepare one, but did so anyway, and had that reviewed at the state level. So it demonstrates a commitment on both our part to conservation as our first most economical source of new supply. And again, we're active in the Clackamas River Water Providers Group and have been since its inception, and before that, when it was called the Clackamas Water Managers Group, we were an active and financially participating member. A little bit about water rights. As I mentioned, Lake Oswego is currently on a peak day. Historically has withdrawn up to 16 million gallons a day. We have 22 million gallons a day of undeveloped permitted water. Tigard is named as an authorized place of use on those permits and has been for quite some time. Our diversion facility is located in an area of low habitat quality. We've heard a lot of questions in the community as we've talked about our project about the impact of the additional withdrawals on fish. So as part of our environmental diligence and the application that we have to submit to National Marine Fisheries and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, we have done some fairly comprehensive and rigorous studies of not only habitat quality, but presence of endangered fish stocks in that stretch of the river that could potentially be affected by our additional withdrawals. And throughout that modeling and analysis effort, we also were asked by Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife to look at what might the cumulative effect be of our withdrawal when combined with all the other withdrawals that are permitted on the river upstream of us. And so we undertook that analysis and determined that it would result on a peak day when everybody's taking water out of the river at the same time at their maximum permitted amount, including ours, that it would reduce the surface elevation of the river in the stretch of the river that's affected by our intake by less than 1/10 of a foot. In fact, I think it's about 0.055 feet, so about half to 3/4 of an inch thereabouts. And so that was good news, not only to us, but also to ODF&W and National Marine Fisheries.
Joe, may I ask you just a quick question? That diversion, is that location, but what is, and I'm sorry, you mentioned, I didn't pick it up, what is the diversion starting upstream and coming down? Or was that total diversion from top to bottom?
It was total diversion starting at the most upstream intake facility. So we made an assumption in that model run that every one of those diversions upstream of us, and I think there's 3. We didn't really look at Estacada because it's so far up and such a small amount, but we looked at the remaining 3 major diversion points and assumed how would those maximize diversions, and then if you add ours onto that at the very end, we're the last one on the stream, if you added ours onto that, what would it do to the surface elevations downstream of that? There was a stretch of river downstream of our intake about 1/4 of a mile where there's a shallow riffle, and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife was concerned about the cumulative effect of all these withdrawals on the surface elevation of that riffle and the ability of fish to migrate through it. And the results of this analysis indicated that it was basically negligible, the impact.
Joel?
Yes.
I've lived on the river for a number of years, and I've seen some summers when it's been really, really low down in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that if you took, say if you used what you are anticipating taking, that taking it out down at that site isn't going to affect upstream levels very much?
The upstream intakes would have some effect. We didn't go upstream and try and measure what change that might be in surface elevation. All we did
That's what I'm
was
concerned
take
about.
the but we can't. That's nothing we can do about that.
You can't modeling, can't they determine that?
Well, I suppose we could have, but our charge, our standard to meet is what impact does our withdrawal have on the stretch of river that's at our intake and downstream?
But see, it's what's up above that's going to feed what you're taking out, and that means.
Understand, that's why we looked at basically adding all those diversions from the upstream point to ours to find out what the impact would be downstream. We're not obligated to assess habitat quality or rearing habitat or spawning habitat or those kinds of things. We're required to look at those aspects of the river from our intake down to the mouth of the Old.
Not the effect down up above.
No.
Above you.
That, somebody else would have to do that at some point in the future if they wanted to expand their withdrawals, if they hadn't already done so.
So even though yours could severely affect our levels here, you're not obligated?
No, our withdrawal at our point would not affect upstream stream flows. Only those withdrawals upstream from us could affect river levels, elevations upstream of us.
But the overall issue, in addition to the amount that is being withdrawn now, just to be sure, because we have some people in the audience to whom this stuff may be new. Right now, there's a certain level of withdrawal. With the cumulative applications for permit extension for the currently non-certificated water rights for yourself, Commission, Oak Lodge, South Fork, I think in Sunrise. When you did your calculations, were they based on either the current withdrawal and where the river would be next to you, or were they based on the anticipated full extended application permit rights, and where would the river be when it gets to you?
Yes, that latter.
Okay.
So we made an assumption that all the upstream diverters would be diverting their maximum authorized amount. They would already be doing that by the time the river got to our point. Then the model looked at, okay, now what happens below us if we also take out our maximum allowed amount? Because again, the area of concern for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, when they looked at migrating them, areas for fish to migrate through, they were concerned about these shallow riffles and how would fish get through those. And so the modeling showed that there would be negligible effect on the depth of flow at that location based upon all those withdrawals.
And did you do that on both a high water and low water?
We looked at a couple of different, we looked at 95, almost 100 years of river flow data from gauges upstream that were then correlated downstream. And we looked at the 95% exceedance flows, meaning that 5% of the time flows are less than that. And then we also took into account these additional withdrawals. So it was a very conservative analysis.
So you took it basically at low water.
Yes.
And your worst case scenario is the worst of the worst. Everything upstream is low when it hits you, and it's still not going to disturb you.
Right. One other aspect of our proposed new intake is that, again, in collaboration and coordination with ODF&W and National Marine Fisheries, we've identified a short stretch of the river just upstream of our intake that because of the morphology in the river, it causes a big eddy in front of our intake, and that's been a historic occurrence. And so we've been working with them to figure out how to address that so that we minimize the risk of fry impinging on our fish screens. And so as part of our project, we'll be doing some channel modifications of the river at that point to direct the flow past the face of our screens in such a way that we reduce that potential negative aspect.
I would only say rivers have a very strong habit of returning to their selected pathway.
They do. We've been doing a lot of work to understand the morphology of the stream. A little bit about project schedule. We're in the design and permitting phase right now, and that will continue for various aspects of the project. Some of the first projects where design will be completed and we'll move into the construction phase include our river intake pump station, because it will span a 3 in-water work period duration. So basically over the course of 3 years, first year we'll install a coffer dam that will allow the structure to be isolated from the river and built without impacting recreation or fish. The second year, and then the structure will be built throughout the winter. The second year will be the stream channel modifications, and then the third in-water work period would be removal of the old intake structure. And our water treatment plant will also bid early next year. And the project, as I mentioned, needs to be complete by agreement in June of 2016. So with that, I think I have a few minutes left for any questions you might have.
I have a couple of questions. I understand that in this, or I guess a question, in financing this, are you bonding, going out for additional money, either Tigard or Lake Oswego?
We are. We're locally funding this 100%. So Tigard recently sold about $102 million worth of bonds, revenue bonds. Lake Oswego is in process of doing the very same thing, although we are in an interim step. We are going out for an interim line of credit that we'll borrow about $30 million against that, and that's supposed to conclude early next month. And then in the early part of the following year, we'll be going out to the bond market for an $80 million bond issue.
And I know all the providers are very optimistic about the outcome of the case that's now in the appellate court, but what happens if that's not successful?
Well, we've been asked that question by our counsels, as you might imagine. We remain optimistic that the outcome will be favorable. Based upon the record of the appellate court and given the uniqueness of this case before them, this is really the first case to come before them on the new statutes and the new regulations. We received a very favorable finding and ruling from the administrative law judge upholding the approval by Water Resources Department of the extensions. We've been working very closely with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're the ones, of course, under statute that provide the advice to Water Resources Department regarding persistence of species. So we believe we have a very strong case. And quite frankly, we believe that the petitioners have not built a compelling case for remanding this or modifying it anyway. So we're optimistic.
So there's no plan B?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but
It's nothing you'd like.
yeah.
Thank you.
Jill, I can understand why Lake Oswego wants to do this and get the help of Tigard. I've had a little difficulty understanding why Tigard was going to go away from Bull Run water and get into something, you know, this big. But you said it would cost Lake Oswego an addition 50 million gallons or $50 million to rebuild what they have to rebuild if they had to do it alone?
Well, if we were going to go it alone, our population forecasting and demand estimates out the next 50 years indicate that we would need potentially up to 24 million gallons a day of water. And currently we have a 16 million gallon a day plant that's almost 50 years old. So we would upgrade, expand, and modernize that to that 24 million gallon a day capacity. And doing it alone, we estimate would cost in the neighborhood of $50 million, additional dollars.
Additional dollars over what you already have invested, or more than what you're putting into this?
More than what we're putting into it, just to get to that 24 million gallon a day capacity. So it would be really, you know, we're replacing the intake, all the pipelines, the plant, basically the same project, slightly smaller in size, but very much more expensive, not only in terms of capital expenditure, but then we would not have the ability to share the ongoing operating and maintenance costs with a partner. Those would be solely borne by Lake Oswego ratepayers.
You also mentioned one advantage of this was the ability to move water around among the providers in this general region. Does that take into effect the use of the old pipeline to Portland?
No, it doesn't. It takes advantage of the new pipelines that would be built with the project. Right now, we're still not sure what we're going to do with the old pipeline. On the untreated side of that pipeline system from the intake to the water treatment plant, we're going to connect the new and the old together because we don't want to necessarily abandon it at this point. We've learned that getting across the river with a new pipeline is extremely difficult and expensive. And so we don't want to abandon that facility right now. We think it might have value to the region at some point in the future. And finished water pipeline side, we're not quite sure what to do with that. We think that there should be some interest in the region for maintaining that, to bring water from those other sources to the east side of the Willamette or wherever, but right
Well,
now.
I've heard discussion from Dan Bradley where he's suggesting that might be used to get good movement all around from, that everybody here, if everybody here bought into it, like might cost maybe $30,000 a district to get, you know, for flowing to and from Portland and the whole area.
Well, it certainly has, again, it has value as a regional asset. The devil's in the details about how you make those connections. The one thing that we do know today is that our new pipelines between our intake and Tigard will cross directly over the Washington County supply line, which connects the Bull Run system. You know, it starts heading south, and you may know that Wilsonville and the Willamette plant, Sherwood has now bought into that and is extending pipelines north. So at some point, someday, it's very likely that the four major sources in the region could be connected at that kind of ground zero point of Bonita Road and 72nd.
How are you're talking about how are you planning to get your bigger line across the river?
Well, we're going to use a trenchless technology called horizontal directional drill. And
You'll be boring under.
Yeah, basically
Yeah.
we'd be boring
They just
a
did
tunnel.
this down in Albany.
Yep, yeah, boring a tunnel under the river.
So it'll be the same type of thing.
Mhm.
You made a statement early on referencing the 190 that CRW and Sunrise are considering. And I understood you to say that in your case, you'd be doubling your rate base, and you thought that this 190 would double the rate base and spread the cost. But as it's at least currently structured, there's no new rate base. There's nothing for CRW that would mitigate or help offset the cost that we already have sunk into our infrastructure. So they really are very different situations.
I apologize if I misstated that or misspoke.
I just wanted to
I'm
make sure it
just
was clear.
reading a little bit, and I don't know a lot. It sounded like there was some unused capacity in the facilities, and being able to use that unused capacity is a more efficient use. So
Well, there is unused capacity. Right now, there's no place for it to go, unlike your situation.
thank you.
I know at prior meetings, it's been expressed by a few commissioners in regards to the water use of the Clackamas River, and I haven't heard that being brought up at this meeting with Joel, if you guys want to ask those questions. I know that those were concerns, but I haven't heard it brought up, and that's one of the reasons why maybe you have come to do a presentation to a better understanding as to what your partnership is with Tigard. And I believe that was possibly one of the bases for the majority of this board not approving Tigard being part of the, what is it, the Clackamas River Water Providers?
Yeah, the water
Yeah.
providers.
So I don't know, I'd possibly like to hear some discussion in regards to that, or you can express those concerns again.
Actually, you know, I've heard other people express about taking it out of this basin for another, but frankly, that's what we do all the time. I think if it's taking it away from the Willamette Basin, that's a problem. But Tigard is a part of the Tualatin watershed, and the Tualatin goes into the Willamette, same as the Clackamas goes into the Willamette. So we're all working together there, and we have many of our districts here. Look, for instance, Oak Lodge is not in the Clackamas River Basin.
Neither are we.
Sunrise.
Neither is West End.
You know, not, we are.
Yeah, and I think of it, for me, anyway, I think of it as, these are all public waters. They're owned by the state. They're not owned by anybody in a particular watershed or a community that's in a watershed. They're state waters, and the state grants all of us, you, me, Oak Lodge, whoever, the opportunity to use those state waters for local benefit. And so I think of it more holistically as these are everybody's waters. Everybody has an interest in the use of those locally and statewide. So we
But I
went
do
through,
think, oh, excuse me.
we went through the public interest process just like you did when the state granted CRW its water rights. We had to show that it was not going to be contrary to the public's interest to withdraw that water from this particular river. So
I do think that in general, you know, if you take water from this basin that feeds the Willamette and take it over the Columbia, that's a different story. And that's what I fought for a long time, you know, going that far out of the basin to another totally unrelated one. Because we need to keep feeding this system to keep it healthy. And that's a matter of the watershed health. My concerns were that there seemed to be sort of a PR situation going on with Lake Oswego and Tigard wanting the approval of the other districts in order to help them get land use help over in the Lake in the West Lynn area. I thought that we were being used maybe as a sort of as a pawn to help you that way, rather than legitimately needing to be a member of the providers. That was my concern, Joel.
And
To
realistically,
be honest.
it's the appellate court who's going to make the decision. I mean, we have no standing, you know, not sense, we have no dog in this fight.
You're in the catbird seat, aren't you?
Right.
Thank you for being candid, Barbara, for your honesty. Thank you. I've been a supporter of this partnership, and I think that in today's world, because we are receiving federal monies to build and increase our water treatment plants, that these types of partnerships are necessary, and we're probably going to see more of them in the future. And I think that's a big reason, or one of the reasons why we've been in discussions with Sunrise with the 190 agreement. And I think that you've definitely shown a use for your water, and I'm thinking that with the lawsuit, I'm pretty sure it's going to be favorable to Lake Oswego. And in fact, you're probably in a better position than most. So thank you
Thank you very
for
much.
attending.
Thank you, Julie.
Providing
Thank
the
you.
presentation.
Okay.
And I'm very envious of Tigard's ASR. I wish ours was up and running.
Oh, another question, Joel, about the ASR. I have another question about the ASR. You said all they have to do is to take the water out of the well and chlorinate it, and that's it? They don't have to retreat it?
No.
We just chlorinate it.
Just
Chlorinate it as we pull it back out.
It's like coming from a well.
Exactly.
It is?
Yeah, but that's what we have running. Thank you.
And you don't have to feel like you need to stay if you don't want to, just so you know.
That's
Sometimes
okay, I
our
thought
meetings
it-
run late, so.
Like I said, I'm a new customer, I might stay, and just see what's going on in my district.
Good
Thank you.
idea.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Hey, you want to be on our board?
Maybe when this project goes right.
Yeah, no. You're out.
Well, good evening. Agenda item 3 is project acceptance request for the King Road Water Line Repair Project, CIP 115119. As you know, the project was identified in last year's budget, and it was to address a piece of water main on King Road, just east of 82nd Avenue, that sustained a major leak in 2010. So the design was completed this year, this early year, and I did the project in the spring, and DM Excavating was the low bidder, so they were able to contract. And really the amount of work that was required was a fairly quick job. It was done very well. DM has a very crew, very adept at doing what was needed to be done out there. About 20 to 25 feet of water line, 18-inch concrete and steel water line was replaced with ductile iron. And all the work was completed before the end of the fiscal year 12. So the original contract was for just over $29,000, and with some minor quantity adjustments based on less water line or less piping being installed than estimated, and some adjustments for a little additional paving restoration on the road there as a result of the project. The total contract amount was reduced by about $1,000, so the total amount is $27,948. Again, all the work was completed. No real punch list happened, so we're recommending the board approve the project.
Do I have a motion on the floor?
I move that the board approve and authorize the board president's signature of the notice of acceptance for the King Road Water Line Repair Project, CIP 11-5109, which establishes the project completion date as of August 9, 2012.
A second.
And I would just add the comment that obviously you guys did a heck of a job of repairing the leak because everything stayed until we got through this.
Thanks,
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks to Ox and putting on a proper size repair van.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know that was a pretty exciting event.
I'm sorry, Barbara, did you second?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Adora, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
And Commissioner Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. President, you'll the notice for you.
Great, thank you.
Presentation up here.
Commissioner,
Okay, yes.
you need to convene the contract review board. For this item.
For item 4 for the signatures?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Item
was
five.
one step ahead.
Yeah. So, and just for your information, I put all the presentation together so I wouldn't have to open different presentations, so they're all stapled on the same packet in front of you. So we're talking about agenda item 4, which is the annual review and reauthorization of bank accounts and check signers. Basically, no changes from last year. We still have our accounts with U.S. Bank. We have a general checking account. We also have a payroll account, which is a ZBA account. That stands for zero balance account. So money from the general checking account is moved to that payroll account only as needed. We currently have facsimile signatures on the checks, as we've had for quite some time now. And those signatures on the check are the general manager and the CFO. We also have a third signer that's on the signature cards with the bank, and that is the water resource manager. That enables us to do a check if we need to do a last-minute manual check, which we do very rarely. But should we need to do that, and if either Lee or myself is not around, we can get the water resource manager's signature on the check to be able to issue the check. Additionally, the resolution allows for signing of checks by the board president, secretary, or treasurer. However, the bank does not have signature cards for that. So should we ever be in a position where we need that, we need to coordinate with the bank first and get signatures on file with the bank.
I'm not interested. Thank you.
But that might be something that would happen in a major general emergency of some sort.
Yes. So when I didn't give you a sample motion here, maybe I did on the work papers, yeah.
No, I have some questions. If there are no changes, since the existing resolution has no time limit, why is it before us?
This is something that historically has been brought to the board annually, although I think we have missed a year or two here and there. But it is brought the intent is to bring it to the board annually, just for review and acknowledgement.
Yeah, try 3. I went back and looked. And so currently, it is your signature and Mr. Moore's signature.
That's correct.
And why have you not taken the steps to have the backup signatures? There are a number of people listed, including the water resource manager.
The water resource manager is a signer on the account. That signature is with the bank. So if we do a manual check, currently the ordinary process checks have a facsimile signature on it. It's built into our accounts payable system, and the checks come out with 2 signatures. If we had to do a manual check and I was out of the office, we could still issue that check because Mr. Moore and the water resource manager could sign.
So there are 3 staff signatures and no board signatures.
That's correct.
In looking at this, it makes reference to the accounting and internal control procedures. I haven't seen those.
Yes, the internal control procedures were presented to the board at the same time that we presented the investment procedures. So those have been presented and acknowledged by the board, internal controls and investment.
I'm
Policy.
looking from memory here, but those 2 documents that were presented to the board were not procedure documents, they were policy documents, and all the documents said was, we will have internal controls. And so I'm asking for, what are those internal controls? And I don't want you to tell me verbally, but we need it, we need to see it in writing.
I don't know if that's really in the best interest of the agency to have a document out there that explains what our internal controls are.
The internal control policy basically identifies separation of duties and certain other things that are there to mitigate somebody being able to, take money without authorization. Some of those things include having a different person set up vendor numbers than the person who generates the checks, having a different person balance the checkbook, do the banking reconciliation, than the person that issues the checks. So it makes it more difficult for somebody to hide some misbehavior. There's also additional internal control procedures that include review and sign-off processes. We shared the internal control procedures with the auditors when they were in here last year, and they validated their audit based on if we were following that policy or not. And they were quite pleased with the policy as it exists.
Well, I have conceptually, I have to say I have a little problem with the idea that the board might not be trustworthy, but staff is. I'm not denigrating staff in any way, but the board is ultimately responsible, and under board policy, we are responsible for having internal controls. So I believe that it is appropriate to provide the board with sight of those.
Which is why we did provide internal controls to the board. I don't believe Commissioner Sterling was on the board at the time that we did that. I think it was prior to his representation on the board. It's not that staff is more or less reliable and trustworthy than board members. It is basically an operational issue with regard to signatures on the check.
I understand that, but what was presented to the board was policy. It was not what you just described. And so what I am saying clearly is that I believe that the board needs sight of that document.
Aren't the auditors reliable as far as determining whether internal controls are good? I mean, this is what I have always figured, that if you have good auditors, they're the ones who tell you if you don't have adequate internal controls.
Absolutely, they will validate their audit based on whether or not we're following our policies and whether our internal control policies are robust enough, based on benchmarking. And they do utilize that. I will say, however, for the auditors, they are not here to find, generally they are not here to find fraud, they are here to determine if our financials fairly represent the actions and activities of the prior year. Now, if they're doing a thorough job, and if there is something wrong, they typically will find that.
Thank you. Commissioner Sterling?
Do you recall how long these controls have been in place? Can you give us a timeline?
I am trying to remember now when we presented that to the board, and I believe it was maybe February or March of 2011.
I think it was 2011, but I know that there were changes made when you came on board, Lee, I believe when you were hired. And then my other question is, in regards to the policy manual, your internal policy manual, is it outlined in that manual in regards to?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was assuming, that it's.
What our policy says is that the board has mandated that staff have the appropriate internal controls to meet state requirements. And then what the auditor does is, on behalf of the board, looks and reviews those to make a determination of whether or not that has in fact occurred. And the auditor has done that all 3 years that they have come in to do the audit to say that our internal controls meet that standard. And you might recall, Commissioner Holloway, when that issue came before the board, there was quite a bit of discussion about it in terms of not only signatures, but also the policies and stuff.
What I recall, Mr. Moore, is that we were brought a policy which had a number which was out of sync, which does not appear in our current board policy book, although we do have a current board policy. And the discussion was related to money that was going out to develop all of that. Now, my question is very simple. I am not denigrating staff. I'm not denigrating the auditors. I, as a commissioner, want to see what those internal controls are. I have a copy of policy. I have copies of 2 policies. I'm talking about the internal controls themselves, which we all agree are not in the policy, right?
I'm not sure that I do agree with that. I believe the policy defines the measures that are taking place to ensure that we have separation of duties and other mitigating controls.
Well, I'll tell you what, to make it
what we're buying. That's the money that comes in chunks. So we did have 2 payrolls in July. If you recall, in June, we had 3 because we ended up having a payroll on the last day. So 2 payrolls in July. Payroll week 28 was for pay date 7/13. Week 30 was 7/27. So there's our net, our payroll, broken up payroll was at the bottom, and then our net accounts payable for July was $471,000.
Commissioner Kemper?
I move to acknowledge payroll in the gross amount of $204,783.24, and acknowledge net accounts paid of $470,587.05 for the month of July 2012.
I second.
I have a couple questions about the accounts payable. I expect this one should go to Mr. Moore. On page 2, check number 76755 to Norm Day, $6,250. Can you tell me what that was for?
It was for additional forensic work that was requested by the investigator that is investigating the status of you and Commissioner Shirley.
He said the same thing last month.
Well, because he did the same thing last month.
Why hasn't the report been submitted? Mr. Phillips stated that he had it on Monday.
We'll provide an update later in this agenda in regards to that. Is that correct?
Yes, I just got the report yesterday.
Okay.
Okay, and Polar Systems has their regular charge, from that,
It's on that same
for their
page.
regular services, which is the 4,148, and then they, oh, so they were behind a month on that. And then they.
Well, that's their service for July.
And then they billed, so, well, it was for July and whatever other month, so we've got 2 regular monthly billings. And then we have $1,015.25 and $792.50 for IT services that are not part of the regular monthly service, so what are those?
That's a different scope of work where we had some problems with our server and our firewall, and they came in and performed
Okay. And I did, as I mentioned in the last meeting, let me find it here, I did find the section in the audit report that talked about expense accounts, and let me find it here, where it recommended in 2010 that it specifically mentioned the board and the general manager have a, quote, responsible party sign off on the expense account. And so, as I have before, I believe that the board should be receiving the detail of all the expense accounts, because we've got several people receiving a couple $1,000 multiple times, which is a big chunk of change. And in connection with Mr. Moore's, I do believe that that should come to the board. I know you authorize it, but you report to him, so that's not very good internal control. Not suggesting anything, just saying it's, as an old risk management consultant, that's not good internal control.
And that, certainly has been discussed with the auditors, and they felt that that was an appropriate step to take.
As a commissioner, I think that that should be coming to the board, since he reports to the board. And I guess that is, so I would like to see the detail reported to us, not just Visa, $2,000 for X. And same thing for employee reimbursement, because we've got some very big employee reimbursements, and we have no idea what they're being reimbursed for. I'm sure, I fully expect it's all absolutely appropriate, but the board needs to be seeing that.
Are you talking about a specific expenditure that I made? I don't see anything that has my name on it.
I'm sorry, say
Are
again?
you talking about a specific expenditure that I made? I don't see anything in here for me.
Well, you've got a visa bill.
We have a visa.
I can find that for you if you like.
Page 2,
Which page?
page
3?
2.
Yeah, so we've got, $959 for you, 800 and something for Ms. Campbell, 349 for Mr. Boyles, 265 for Mr. Pearson. And we have these all the time. And we used to get in our board packets a description of what those charges are. And we really, with the checks, we can at least have some idea where the money is going, but when those are just blanket amounts, we have no way of telling what is being spent for it. Since we've been discussing financial reporting, I do think that that is important. And same thing for, and not to pick on Ms. DiLorenzo in any way, shape, or form. She got the grand sum of $52.17. She couldn't have bought much, but I do think we need to know what she's buying. Okay, that's it. Those are my comments.
Well, I think that's kind of a question that needs to be posed to the board on what type of involvement and at what level we want to have with internal administration. That currently I don't see anything in our board policy that states that we have that sort of oversight because it's taken care of internally. So what you would have to do is if you want to amend board policy, that would have to be done by resolution. You'd have to make a motion, and those steps would have to be taken first.
Commissioner, number one, we used to get it and it stopped abruptly. Number two, it's part of what is being paid. Are you suggesting then
Well,
that
we
we
have-
should, don't give us the checks, hey, no, don't worry.
Well, no,
We don't care where the money goes,
No.
let somebody else take care of it.
The problem is
It's no
we
different.
receive a large document of many checks that are written. So then that would go into, you would want invoices of everything that's
No.
on here. Well, that's
I
what you're
didn't say-
saying, that, you know, you see the payment on here, you see the check, and you want the backup documentation. Well, there's many pages on this check run. So you're essentially saying that we're not doing our due diligence because we don't receive backup documentation for every check that's written. And I do not want that type of oversight. In fact, it's not even necessary because of the way this agency is set up, which is we have administrators and we make policy. And that's where our role ends.
Commissioner, if you're quite finished, I'd be happy to explain what I'm asking for.
I heard what you asked for.
Well, I guess you didn't understand it. All I'm saying is that we did get, and we should be getting, you know, whatever, a payment on a credit card is no different than a payment with a check. It simply is done through a different medium. And so there's no difference in, you know, say Miss DiLorenzo went out for a whale of a lunch or something, whatever it is, we just need to know it was lunch. And so there is no difference in,
I don't even
excuse me,
know,
may
I
I
don't
finish?
even know that.
May I finish?
It's-
So it's no different. If I pay for something with my debit card, if I write a check, if I put it on a credit card, it's all expense. It's no different. That's what the board's supposed to be getting. Doesn't require any change of any sort anywhere. And we used to get it, and now
Okay,
we're
well, it
not.
needs to be done by board motion.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, well, I'm moving on. Dora, do you have any more questions in regards to the accounts receivable, or I'm sorry, in regards to the motion that's on the floor?
No.
Dora, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Holloway?
No.
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
No.
And Commissioner Keto?
Yes.
And again, the employees
Motion
and vendors
fails
will be
2-2.
paid regardless. And again, the employees and vendors will be being paid regardless.
You already have been paid.
Because we're just acknowledging, not approving.
You already have been paid.
Yeah.
I
I don't want to acknowledge what I don't get. It's
Okay,
complicated, Commissioner.
So the last thing I have on my agenda item is the quarterly expenditure status reports. So what I provided in the board packet for all the board members is the line item detail. And I provided it based on quarterly expenditures by line item. This is what I propose to provide on a quarterly basis throughout the year. So obviously the next one, which would probably be in November, would be just quarter one, and the other 3 columns would be blank. So these are all of the individual lines that we have in our general ledger and the total dollars that are budgeted for that line, as well as the expenditures to those budgets. So in this report, again, it's line item. We have stayed within budget in all categories: personnel services, material services, and capital outlay. And, but again, we may have a few more entries to make, depending upon if we get any late accounts payable invoices for activity that took place in June or prior.
Thank you.
So if anybody has any comments on the status report, I'd be happy to kind of answer.
We just have to wait till we have a new commissioner.
Okay, moving on. Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
Are there any more PowerPoints?
I'm sorry, Cindy, did you have a comment in regards to that agenda item?
About the last agenda item, it was only to do with the line items thing, but I didn't get a chance to see it, so I'll get a copy after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Agenda item number 7, Sunrise Corridor water line relocation. Since this is just a status report, most of you have heard the story about the JPA Sunrise Corridor works. I won't go through the job description, and I'll just move over to the activities. That's on the second page. I'll just quickly go through the items completed to date. And as you know, in March, we got the conflict letter from ODOT and update utility master plan work through ODOT. OBAC, they prepared the scope of work for us. We considered a professional service agreement on May 10th. CRW responded to ODOT's letter of conflict in May of 2012. We prepared a professional services agreement with OBAC to do our design, and that was approved by the board on 5/10/2012. The service contract was signed on June 18th, 2012. That same time, ODOT sent us a letter, notice to proceed. That's why the contract is the same date of June 18th. And at the same time, we issued a notice to proceed to the engineering firm to proceed with their design work. So since that time, we've been busy. Right now, we have completed the active items. We've done 30% of the design as of July 30th. And as part of that next line, there, OBAC CRW design, that's just a kind of summary. The preliminary design is due August 1st. Basically, that was the 30% date. We finished that on July 30th. And the next final design is due October 1st. So in the next 2 months, we will be diligently working on the remaining of the design. ODOT right now projects a bid opening of March 2013. Come this spring, we'll be talking about budgets, confirm numbers, hopefully by budget. Bid numbers by ODOT's contractor will do the work for us. And
They anticipate start work sometime in May of 2013, and probably will take about 2 to 3 years worth of construction. So right now, we're in the design mode. Operations have been out in the field doing potholing on non-reimbursable work. OVAC has done potholing and ODOT potholing excavation and determined where the water lines are on the reimbursable work. That's their responsibility. And I'm doing the paper chase, watching the budget, reviewing the design. Kurt and I are doing the design. Mr. Annabelle is busy working on the generator. So we are a very busy bunch right now. Not a whole lot to report on other than we're in the design mode.
Hi, Bob, do you have any sense of any change in projected cost or anything? Is it still kind of, oh,
I got a little bit.
okay. I just want to have a sense of whether it's still ballpark or
It's
I'm
still,
about to get a surprise.
it's still ballpark, but it hasn't gone up.
Okay.
What we did determine from ODOT, they did tell us the reimbursable amount of the 200, let's see here, of the $182,700 estimate for the pre-design work for OPEC, of that, work $141,884 is reimbursable. So the majority of the work is reimbursable in the design. The rest of it, now, that's not construction costs, I'm just talking about the design piece. So, a good 2/3 of it more is reimbursable. And what I'm also finding as we get into it, as we have done some of the items that we thought were conflicts will not be conflicts.
Okay.
So some of the design, even though those are numbers, some of that design will not happen, some of the construction will not happen. In 2 months, when I have the design pretty well complete, I'll have more confirmed numbers of what it's costing in engineering in-house, because right now you haven't seen any in-house numbers yet of what's costing in-house labor.
And so then you can.
Right now is OVAC, but I will do a summary sheet of our sub-consultant, OVAC, and our in-house staff. So you can see the total cost.
And so, and you're also updating our GIS system as you make these new discoveries?
Yes. No, that is correct. Anytime, on any of our jobs, as we do update field investigation, it's amazing how many little maps and little pieces of information come from operations.
Oh, yeah.
They are very diligent about making their sketches, taking photographs. Our inspectors do the same thing, and they go to our GIS guy and we incorporate it. Yeah, we have a stack of drawings that we work out to get them in the system.
So we know more now.
Mr. George, did you follow along with the situation with Sunrise, Mr. Emmert, over off of Longfield Road, in what used to be within our district, but was either failed to be changed in the county records or whatever? They wanted, what, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for water that was billed and used or misused? You don't follow that, huh?
I'm not aware of what happened in Sunrise.
How about 25 words or less about the status of the Carver Bridge?
Haven't touched it for 2 or 3 months because they're building the bridge. The water portion of it is a good year out. All right, so I have not paid a whole lot of attention. In fact, I haven't been down there because of the construction. I'm not even sure how complex or how congested it is down there.
You don't want to get stuck.
Not too bad.
Okay. 2 months, month and a half ago, just before they pulled into the job site, I went down, walked around, looked at it. It's the same it has been for the last 4 years. Trees are down, they're getting ready. I have not gone down there recently. I'm assuming it's pretty congested down there.
Thank you.
I have contacts with the
Summer,
Wild Leaf Company and all that. Yeah, I'm working with Clackamas County. But,
They're saving our space.
Oh, yes.
And lastly, just out of curiosity, do we have anyone else online, what would be considered emergency status, aside from Danny Meng and his company? In the case of an emergency call out?
Well, we have 10 operations people with equipment. That is our emergency people.
So you wouldn't use any subcontractor in an emergency basis then?
I'll have to ask you to talk to Tom Bunyan, your operations manager, but I've been here 6 years, and all the times I've seen our crews have handled probably 99% of all the items.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty well equipped to handle most emergencies now.
Why- yeah,
I know in
why
the
we
past,
wanna
we have ran into
spend
some
money.
real big problems where they had to bring big equipment in, but those are special and far and few between.
So our staff is capable of covering 99% of the emergencies that have occurred so far?
Yeah.
Good, excellent, thank you very much.
As far as I'm seeing, unless
100% so far. Knock on wood.
That's even better, thank you. That's even better, thank
Adam
you.
has something to say.
If I could interject just really quick, the King
Sure.
Road project, which you just approved, is a great example of that, where ops came out at the time of the break, put the repair bands on, went back a year later actually, and put a better repair band on, basically prevented further leakage. Then we were able to go back to normal contracting procedures, happened to be DM excavating, we were a little better out there to do an actual replacement of that segment of pipe. So ops is, in my short time here.
They're a tremendous asset to
Definitely.
Sunrise there in Happy Valley.
And I believe they do have some sort of agreement with Sunrise where they're DM excavating that is used for that capacity.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nancy, do you have anything?
Agenda item 8, what staff is asking or proposing is that we begin the hearings process for the ORS 190 agreement with Sunrise. And we would propose that we schedule 2 meetings, one in September and one in October.
Are these meetings or are they hearings?
They
Because
they would be hearings, for the purpose of eliciting from the general public any questions that they might have about the document. That's one of the things that we committed to. Yes, Commissioner.
Will they be actual hearings or open houses?
Well, actually, the board, this is really the board's call, you know. My thinking is that you can go at it a couple of ways. One is you could actually have hearings where you could elicit testimony from folks. You could have the board sit as the hearings body, or you could have staff do that. Or you could have open houses where you could really have discussion groups to talk about the 190. You have a variety of different ways. It just seems to me that if there is a lot of public concern, a lot of public questions, it may be a lot easier to have a more structured process where the public could come in and ask whatever questions they might have, or provide whatever comments they have about the actual agreement. But really, the format and how you do that is really a board decision, because it really is a policy issue.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Barbara?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
It would seem to me premature to schedule something, frankly, until we have another commissioner on board.
Absolutely. We need to have a full staff here on the board.
And I mean, I do not believe that there is a board majority support at this stage. And so I don't really think we should be expending any more public resources until we get our open commission position replaced and that person gets up to speed.
And how are the ratepayers going to evaluate and make a decision on the 190 if they don't have a copy of it? I understand it's not even on the webpage yet.
It is
on the
finally.
webpage.
It is on the webpage?
Yes.
Did it happen this morning or something?
No, it did not happen this morning. What we had on the webpage was a frequently asked questions. We had the white paper, and we had, I think, one other document. When I looked at the website, and I saw that the 190 was not, the entire document was not on there, I added it to the website as well. When we agreed to release the document, as you'll recall, we had members of the general public who were here. We gave them CD-ROMs of those documents in total, in the same manner that the board received them.
Yeah, it's certainly within, it's come on within the last 2 or 3 days, because I've been checking. I'm very glad it's there.
I think because the document has been released, I think it's important, regardless of whether or not we have the fifth commissioner, that we get the process started to receive that feedback from the public. Because the document's been released, I don't see how it would be a service to the public by not offering a forum for them to have their questions answered, or make requests for further information, or provide any type of commentary.
It would be a distinct service to the ratepayers to wait until the fifth commissioner is placed on the board so that the money can stop being wasted on this 190 and get back to running Clackamas River Water as to what it is, a water district. Not some convoluted 190 with all sorts of $1 million penalties and stuff. The money has got to stop being paid and flowed to this entity. It's a waste.
Okay,
We've
well,
spent
that's-
hundreds of thousands of dollars on this document, and Mr. Moore continues to spend it with this Cochran person developing what is called a protocol manual thing specifically referred to within this document.
They're not the same, Commissioner Sterling, and what you're telling me is that you've seen the policy manual that you just spent the earlier part of this meeting saying that you haven't seen.
And the other thing is, that's your opinion. What I'd like to hear is other people's opinion, not just yours. And you can have your opinion on it.
I do have my opinion.
I understand that, but because it's your opinion doesn't mean it's everyone's opinion. And for
I didn't
you-
say that it was.
Well, the way you stated it as to why you wouldn't want a forum was because of your own personal opinion with the agreement.
Didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said a course would be necessary after the fifth member is brought onto the board. We're like a lame duck sitting around here wasting time and money. Until the fifth commissioner comes on and the decision is made whether to go forward with this document or not, then we need to just sit back and stop spending ratepayer money.
Mr. Kemper?
We are all quite aware of Mr. Sterling's and Ms. Holloway's opinions. I agree with Cammie that it's important to go ahead. We need to go ahead. Sunrise is going to be going ahead. And whether or not we have 5 commissioners or 3, however many commissioners we have, as long as we have a quorum, we can hold these things. And people have to have a chance to start getting their input in. And we're not going to be making any decisions, but we need to be giving people a chance to be heard, other than just saying no.
Well, Lee, what I can do, oh, sorry, Commissioner Holloway.
You know, I mean, it's pretty obvious that right now it's dead in the water with CRW. And until and unless that changes, then it certainly could change with the advent of another commissioner. It's a waste of the public's time, it's a waste of everyone's time.
It is
to
not a
put
waste of
Excuse me,
time.
Commissioner. To put any more time into it, in my view. Staff is busy, they are, tell us all the time how busy they are. So we certainly shouldn't be expending any more of their time. And I don't believe that this organization could go forward with an honest face and hold a hearing on something that right now is dead.
We cannot make decisions, but we can get comments on record. I mean, no decisions, but we can hear from
Exactly.
people.
Thank you. Cindy, you have a comment on this item?
Cindy Lewis Wolfram, Milwaukee, ratepayer, concerned ratepayer. I'm kind of a little astonished that I'm hearing the proponents of openness and getting the ratepayers involved and informed on this commission, at least the supposed proponents of that, are trying to put clamps on getting this information and an interaction between the ratepayers and the commissioners involved in this. I think what I just heard, and I hope it's not what I heard, because I've watched Commissioner Holloway in the past listen to things, consider them, and change her mind in a judicious manner about something.
Will you please refrain from speaking of commissioners in a defamatory or
I'm trying, this is not, I'm saying something complimentary to her, that she has done that. That she has done that. But what I just heard said at this board was not to listen to the public and hear what the public has to say. You have enough people to do the work of this commission right now. The work of this commission can be done by 3 people or 4 people if they can work in concert with each other. And I cannot believe that if enough of the public is able to come here and listen to the program and make comments to you that were in support of this, that might not change where your predetermined judgment has already landed. So whether it be negative or positive, whether it be on this side of the table or that side of the table, I think to not have a hearing, at least one, to get feedback from us, is a sour grapes move from this board.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. No, I have to kind of agree that, well, I'm not going to reiterate what I already stated, but I think it's important that we provide a forum for the public to have a discussion in regards to the 190. Lee, you said which dates?
I didn't pick a specific date. What I had indicated was that I thought maybe having one in September and one in October might be an appropriate start. I haven't recommended an approach. That's really the board's call. And quite frankly, I have no idea how long it will take if in fact we were to wait for the 5th commissioner, how long that would take. But I was thinking that hopefully by October that would happen. I don't know. You know, that's really up to you all. And it was something that the board had asked me to move forward. So that's the only reason why.
Well, we've already provided you direction to move forward on it.
Yes.
So if you want to pick a date to have that open house or forum, you know, go for it. It's not going to be placed on the agenda for a vote until this type of public process has taken place. So if you're able to determine that and send out a notice and let us know. But I don't know, I think that might be like the best way to fulfill what, you know, I mean, I guess the board kind of gave you discretion as to moving forward.
When did that happen?
Commissioner Holloway?
My recollection is that the board established the committee to look at this. This committee has produced it, and that is where it stopped. No other instructions have been given to Mr. Moore, so I can see why he would look for guidance from the board before he expended any more resources on this. And that was it. It's, well, you know, you guys met, you produced it, it's out there. At the moment, it doesn't have support to go anywhere. And so I just, you know, I think it's irresponsible at this point.
You know, just to remind commissioners, when we had the joint meeting, the question was asked, should we move forward and what format we should do that? And I realized at that time, and that's one of the reasons I've come back here today, we had 5 commissioners. And there was consensus, I think, between both Sunrise and CRW board to move forward and begin holding hearings. But given the dynamics is why I've laid this out the way that I have, so.
I truly don't recall that coming from that meeting, even consensus. If you believe that happened, I'd appreciate the documentation of it.
So, the other option is I can put it on the agenda for a future meeting. It can be an agenda item, and we can provide a forum for the public to come and make comments and for a presentation to be done.
For the month of November is soon enough.
Okay, moving on.
Madam Chairman?
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I signed up.
Oh, you did, sorry, Gary. Do you want to come up, please? Thank you.
Gary Kerr, ratepayer. I have read the document. I have prepared some questions and some, what I think might be typos and some commentary. A copy for the general manager and one copy for the board. Okay.
There are typos, you're right.
And
but it's better. No, I mean, when I read this version that's out now, there are typos, yes. Not as many as in the first one.
How about
though.
public comment?
It's
just
still a draft.
Just a comment on the draft. As I read it, I got some mixed messages on the way some of the paragraphs work, some of the information in the paragraphs. I've addressed them a little bit in my questions and commentary, which is always run there. But I just wanted to hand that to the board and ask that we do have some input where we can ask questions and receive answers and other kinds of things so that we can get some public commentary on what is really a very important decision by the board and an important decision for beginning processes to make the basin more efficient, some of which Mr. Comrie talked about today in his presentation with Clackamas Weekly. So that was the extent of my commentary, and I have that copy for the board and gentlemen.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Gary.
And you'll send it to us, Ken?
We'll make copies.
Thank you.
I just would like to clarify one thing. I don't think that we should be approaching the public in any manner that says this is something that is going to happen. Certainly people can come and ask questions and so on, but I don't want, it would not be appropriate for us to misrepresent it in any way.
When you say this is something that is the hearings or the 190, I'm not quite sure.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the 190. It would be a gross error for CRW to present to the public that this is something that is going to happen. We definitely do not want to put that message out.
I have never said that in any of my conversations, that it's a done deal or that basically what I have told the public that have asked me directly is that we're just beginning the process of input. This is a proposed draft and it could go in a lot of different directions. And one of those is doing nothing.
Thank you. Moving on to your report, please.
Just some housekeeping items. The last meeting, there was some discussion when we had our special meeting. The contracts log, we were asked to revise it to include the expiration dates of contracts. And so the document that you have in Exhibit 2 is a format of what you would see in the future. And this, it would be a monthly document that, so that basically would be looking retrospectively in the month past. So this month, for example, you see contracts that were entered into on 6/30 and 7/31. And the second document that you asked us to work on, I believe Commissioner Kipper gave us a template of her recommendations of things that we should have, and that was on Exhibit 3, which is the board calendar. And essentially what we have done is laid out month at a glance for the coming year, okay, coming fiscal year. And there, behind those documents, staff had put together, let's see if I can find it. On page 1, right after the calendar, is it also asked for, the board had asked for copies of the current intergovernmental agreements. You also asked that there be expiration dates on those. The documents you see lists those. And the next document is kind of a running or a listing of all of the things that are going to be happening within the fiscal year. And you see those kind of laid out. I think that's a little bit more than what you had asked for.
That's pretty much
But,
very good. Yeah.
but that is what's on there. And so, and then the last document, we have, so let me show you, budget schedule is the first one. And the second one is the audit schedule. And then the third one is the insurance agent of record. I think Commissioner Kemper, you had also wanted that information from. So I think that responds to all of the information that you had asked for as far as we got.
That's a really good start. As far as I'm concerned, this is the type of thing I think the board needs to have in front of them, so we know what to anticipate. Thank you. Other people may have other things they'd like to have treated the same manner, but this takes care of what I was thinking.
And I guess I would encourage the board, because we had started this initially, that this was supposed to be the board's calendar, and the board really has an opportunity to advise staff if there are other events that you would like to have on here. I think there may be some conferences and things like that, that we just did our best, but we kept it.
Yeah, your pages where you list the different things under audit and budget and all that. So you have that whole, everything lined out right there on one page is really good.
Commissioner Holloway? No, let me take the contract and IGA listing, because that's kind of been my hot button. What I had requested on the contracts is not only the name of the contract, or the contracting party and the product, but a running account of how much the contract has been budgeted for at the beginning of the year and how much we have spent to date, and the remainder on the contract. Now, I understand that that's not going to work for something like Office Max, but for example, when you have here sodium hypochlorite, you know, we have a pretty good idea of what we're expecting to pay. And so for that or any other agreement, i.e. Polar Systems, where we know what the monthly charge is, we have a budget set up for the year for them and how much of that has been used and how much remains. So I am trying to be able to track what we have going on, what we've spent, what we have yet to spend, if we're seeing any bulges anywhere, if we see any surprises anywhere. And so, and there are key points that I thought would be showing up on the calendar process. For example, under the IGA with South Fork Water Board, looks like everybody let slip the fact that we should have been developing a 3-year rate structure a year ago. And so I'm looking to be able to track that sort of thing. I'm not really too concerned about what advisory meetings Kehoe and Commissioner Kemper are going to be going to. I'm sure they can manage those themselves. So it's those major target points that I'm concerned with.
Commissioner Holloway, when that issue came up, there wasn't consensus to add those additional items. And so what staff did is entered the things that there was consensus of the board to put on the document, and that was specifically talked about, and the board rejected, rejected is not the right word. There was not consensus for it.
I think I must ask you to give me the documentation, that I don't recall it.
You asked for it, but there was not consensus from the board for the information.
What I'm saying is, Mr. Moore, I don't recall that there was ever any consensus or decision made by the board.
Yes, it
And
was,
if there is-
it was on the screen, Raylene was typing it in. It was done by, it said, what the board agreed on what was going to be a part of meeting the goals that we had set. That's what the work session was on.
Well, Commissioner, that was a document of Mr. Moore's creation, which.
No, he did not create it.
Excuse me.
Raylene is the one who typed it.
Well, whomever did it, I don't care who did it, but it didn't come from the board, and it wasn't given to the board in advance, and someone was typing stuff into it, which was.
It can't be done in advance, because
Excuse
the
me.
board had to have the discussion
Point
on
of order,
it.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
on the floor.
Okay, well, you can't present a document before the board's had a discussion on something. So why would it be presented if the whole purpose of the work session was to determine what those goals were going to be?
Commissioner, there was no agreement or disagreement at the end of that process. It was simply a discussion. In fact, you made sure there were no decisions made. So I am requesting, I would like to see, because that's what the board needs to know about, the information that I had asked. If the decision is going to be to reject my request, well, that's,
I concur, it's necessary that the board determines specifically where the money is coming from and where it is going.
We had the work session, you wanted to delay it, you made the motion to not have the discussion. At that work session, you said, I don't want to have this discussion until we have the fifth commissioner. And then now you're turning around and saying, we don't have the information that we need.
We're discussing
makes-
this because
it
he brought
makes-
it and put it on his manager's report.
Exactly, because your motion failed. Okay, but you did not participate
That's fine,
in
that's
the
fine.
discussion.
We'll
because
get
you
it one
did
way
not
or
want
another,
to.
Keyhole. We'll get it one way or another.
Okay, I'm just saying that you weren't
Yeah.
making much sense. And you're putting him in a position, and you're making allegations and accusations against him, when you yourself aren't meeting your obligation so he can fulfill your request. So you have a responsibility.
I understand that. That's how come I'm sitting here and coming to the meetings on time and
Okay.
participating.
Okay, then I don't understand why you're making motions to not have a
I
discussion.
didn't make a motion. I stated I concurred with Commissioner Holloway that it's necessary that we see the numbers, where the money's coming from and where it's going.
And I'm letting you
Just
know
like
that's
anybody
what-
else.
that's what the
Sunrise
purpose-
has the same information that
That's what the
is
purpose
there.
of the work session was. That was the whole purpose. You were there, and you decided not to participate.
That's not the truth. You're creative thinking again, and you get in trouble every time you try that.
Okay, well, it is true, and you tried to make a motion, and it sounded.
I'm not trying to make a motion.
Point.
I simply concurred with Holloway's thoughts.
Okay, point of order, point of order. Earlier, Commissioner Kehoe cautioned, which was not necessary at the time, Ms. Lewis Wolfram, about making, if you will, personal attacks. I would
I'm not
request,
making personal
I would
attacks.
Sounds like it to me.
I would request
Molly will write it that way.
that the chair refrain. I would point out simply that this is information I have requested. I think it's important for the board. If I'm not able to get it, well, I'm not able to get it. I would say, I would point out that Sunrise, for example, has, and I do consider Mr. Hathaway to be a superb manager, has a process whereby they outline the projects and he updates his board on a regular basis as to where they are in each of those. And Ms. Bright has assured us, and I do believe her, that they have all that information in the computer. They track it, and so it shouldn't be a difficult thing to spit it out into a format. And, I mean, that's it. There's no need to go after Mr. Sterling because of my request for information. Thank you.
No, what I was stating was that he made an accusation and an allegation against the general manager when he is the one that did not participate in a discussion for the board to make a determination on what it is we wanted
Okay,
to
Commissioner.
receive at the work session.
Commissioner, you just made a negative statement about, unsupported,
I
about
didn't make a negative
Sterling,
statement.
and it's
I
not
made-
okay.
Okay, I made a true statement, because
The-
I think
what-
that
what
everyone
allegation-
needs an
what about-
understanding of what the process was, and the fact, what happened, and what did not happen.
What allegation did Mr. Sterling tonight make against Mr. Moore?
What? That he wasn't receiving certain information that he wanted to see on financial reporting, when he's the one that made the decision not to take part in that discussion in the work session. I mean,
That's your creative thoughts again. You're getting yourself deeper and deeper
Do you
into.
have a statement to make?
I did just want to talk about the contract expenditures. As we're dealing with these things, we're dealing with them on a transactional basis. So it's not as simple as pushing a button and getting a list of every beginning balance, ending balance. We handle each of those by contract and by payment. So to generate a report, such as what Commissioner Holloway is asking, would be an extensive amount of staff time.
Well, I believe that Bob gave us an example when he picked a project and we went through the accounting of what he has to do in regards to all the payments that are made in regards to those projects and the costs. And it was a pretty extensive document.
And I will tell you that our system has the ability to limit overspending on contracts. Now that we've got them set up, we didn't used to have contracts in our system, we only had purchase orders, but we do have a system process that keeps us from exceeding the limit. And if you look at the financial reports, and as you'll be seeing the quarterly financial reports, you will see from a line item expenditure amount that we're not exceeding the budget by the appropriation categories.
Ms. Bright, those, I will push back, those are not line items, those are categories. Line items is the chart of accounts.
This is.
And that's what Sunrise and the Lodge get, and that's what I would like to have.
This is the chart of accounts, and I will tell you, after you said that at the last meeting, I thought, I don't understand what Commissioner Holloway is talking about. So I looked at our line items, and I compared them with the, I don't remember if it was Oak Lodge or Sunrise. And
It was
our
Oak Lodge.
description is almost exactly identical. Now, we have categorized them, those bold categories, because that's the way we report on them in the financial statements. But I have given you line item detail.
Well, what I'm referring to is, to give you an example, personnel services manager. Now, I know Mr. Moore is well paid, but he is not paid $490,000.
We have a lot of
At least I
managers.
hope not.
We have a lot of managers. That is a line item in our system.
Well, I would say that if you just gave us, as I requested, all the checks and all the vouchers, payroll, et cetera.
And Sunrise does it every month. Mr. Hathorn's
Okay, we're not
check
doing
is
that.
there.
We're moving
And
Ms.
on.
Anderson, her
Okay,
CFO.
Time to move
We're
on.
moving on.
I guess so, huh? More creative thought.
So,
Item D.
we did meet with Oregon City and with Mr. Frazier, or Frazier, I'm not sure how he pronounces his last name, David Frazier. He's a city manager. We met with John Lewis, who's the interim public works manager, and John Collins, who's the South Fork Water Board. We being Mr. Hathorn and myself. The purpose of that meeting was to
Excuse me, Mr. Moore.
talk.
Ms. Kehoe was saying something to me, I missed. I need to listen to either one or the other of you. I can't listen to you both. Ms. Kehoe, what?
You heard me.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you did. Okay, I'll ask you later. You can go on, please.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Moore. Please, go ahead.
I'm not sure where we are, but I'll just move on. We being Mr. Hathorn and myself, the purpose of that meeting was multiple. One was to introduce and provide them with copies, personal copies of the 190 agreement. We had responded to kind of some high-level concerns that they had. They indicated that they would like to take the document. They did take the document. And they would be getting back to us about its specifics. We also took I took the opportunity to talk to them about the withdrawal issue, because that's something that's been on the burner for quite some time. And now that Mrs. Kreschauer was gone, I wanted to know who the replacement resource was that we could deal with. And he identified Mr. Lewis, who is her interim replacement, and is the person for us to work with. And we also talked just generally about our boundary issues that we had been talking with Ms. Kirschauer about. While we didn't conclude on anything specifically, other than we had kind of framed the issues that we thought needed to be discussed and resolved. And that we had advised them that we, being Wade and I, that we would continue with gathering input from the various stakeholders, which would be Milwaukee. We also talked about our efforts with Happy Valley. And then we would be talking with Oak Lodge and the other principals. We've had just some brief discussions, as you would see in Commissioner Kemper's report, at CRWP as well, just kind of talking generally about what it is that we're trying to do, but also trying to get on the table this discussion about the joint sharing agreement that we really all need to be pursuing within the Clackamas River Basin through the CRWP. We had Carol and myself met with a representative by telephone from Standard & Poor on July 13th. This is an annual, although we hadn't heard from them in a couple of years, but this is normally, all the organizations that I've worked in, you get this call annually. They were asking us a series of questions. We have provided those questions to you in the exhibit document. I believe it's under Exhibit 4. And what they advised is that they would need 30 to 60 days. We met with them on July 13th, that they would get back to us with their findings and their decision.
Mr. Moore, excuse me, sir?
Yeah.
Where are the answers that you provided the Standard & Poor people? Where are they at?
We didn't provide them in the packet.
It was a
Where,
telephone conversation.
why didn't you provide the answers to us?
It was a telephone conversation.
Well, it says here in your purple pages that you provided answers to them during an hour-and-a-half conversation.
Yes, we did. We had a
Are
conversation.
you stating that you didn't write down your answers?
I did not write down my answers, that's correct.
That's unbelievable.
Well, I'm sorry if you disagree with that, Mr. Sterling. I don't.
Well, it's
sit down and
inappropriate
record all my
business practice
conversations.
to take and provide
That's how you do
essentially
it.
what is private information only available to the Board of Commissioners
It was
to
a-
someone over the telephone.
It was a conference call.
Conference call. I've been doing this for over
This-
40 years.
this
I
is
have
a-
never written down and made a transcript of a conversation, of all conversations that I have.
Revealing financial information about Clackamas River water to someone over the telephone on a conference call. And you didn't write the answers down or record the
How
conversation.
do you know what the conversation was about, Mr. Sterling? Where do you
It
see
says
in
right
here?
here.
Where do you see in here financial information?
Just right, what do you think Standard & Poor's calls about?
I have a comment. We are a public entity. Our financials are published online. You can go to the Secretary of State's office and see every one of our financial reports for the last years, plus we have them on our website. We provide public information. Anybody can get a board packet every month. I give financial
And
information.
you-
So it's not secret, private financial information.
You didn't think it was unusual after, did you listen to what you just said?
Yeah, I did. This is a public entity, and this information is not secret. We don't have secret information about our financial stuff. This is Standard & Poor's which is a rating agency. They determine the
I
rates
understand who they
that
are.
we pay on our
32
bond.
years I've done business as a
And so
corporation.
as they're determining what rates we pay, it's based on answers to these kinds of questions. This is very standard.
They should have been simply referred to the public records that you
No,
stated.
absolutely not. They have conversations with the entities, typically on an annual basis.
Which entities?
Any entity that has outstanding debt.
That's how come they should have been referred to the public information.
That's
Don't
not
create
how
that
it
fella.
works. That is not
Yes,
how
it
it
is
works.
how it works, Ms. Bright. It
Not-
certainly
not
does.
in- not in government.
Mr. Sterling,
Yeah.
question number one. Can you briefly update us on the district's current water supply portfolio? Question number two.
To who?
Question number
Complete
two.
the question.
Have there been any rate increases over the last 3 years?
If you're going to read the question, read it completely, Mr. Moore.
I am reading it
Well,
completely.
you didn't complete it on number one.
Can you briefly update us on the district's current water supply portfolio? That's what it says.
Two.
What do you see two?
Can I
He's
just?
looking at exhibit
Can I?
4C.
You're looking at a different document.
Okay.
Additional questions from Standard and
Yeah,
Poor.
this is what's on our board doc. Let's be,
4A
first be sure
is what
we're all talking about the
4A.
same thing.
We have seen the other
4A.
doc.
Where's
Okay.
4A at?
You know what, the,
It's in your packet, Mr. Sterling.
okay, can we move on?
You don't have 4A in the packet, Mr. Moore. It's not here.
You have,
Just like all your methodology.
You have two
Okay,
documents in here.
can we,
No, exhibit 4C is the only one.
No, let's just get
no, I'm not gonna stay here all night, so I think we need to
Leave.
move.
Okay, well, just one second. Lee, if there are documents that we don't have, this is all we have.
Commissioner Kemper has
If
her,
Yeah,
you would
I
just
would-
send them to us, it'd be great.
Commissioner Kemper has her hand up.
I would very much like to make a comment here, that it would be very, very nice if we could ask civil questions of people rather than shouting in an accusatory manner at them as though they're crooks.
Here. Okay.
You know, simply say, and what's the answer to number two, you know?
Please.
I don't,
It's not in there.
I don't have them.
We don't have them, so if you would be kind enough to send them, that would be very helpful.
And that's the concern that I have. There's a statement made without a question. And there's accusations following the statement. And you said that there was a bunch of financial information given. There was not financial information given. This is basic information.
Well, I mean, my.
And when we talked to the gentleman from Standard & Poor, he had looked at our website. He had documents, and he was asking follow-up questions.
One of the things that concerns me is most of these questions that I have anyway really pertain to other water districts. I don't know why we would be answering them. What's the expiration of the North Clackamas agreement? Is there a minimum amount of water they
That's
must
because you
purchase?
probably contacted them.
That's the water
What?
that, excuse me, that's the water that we sell to Sunrise Heat, and they are looking at that to determine
Our
the
revenue.
stability of our revenue from our wholesale customers.
Exactly.
it's the 2.5 million gallons a day.
Yes.
And the next question was, does the district have a long-term agreement with South Fork Water Board to purchase water? If so, what's the expiration date? And the last one is, what is the price of South Fork's water set? That's all
We know
public
this.
information.
What-
And
what-
it's in the contract document that you guys asked for many months ago.
Well, what I was gonna say is, a lot of these are very complex documents, and the only way Standard & Poor can really analyze them is to have the documents.
Well, he didn't ask for the documents. What he asked for was the questions that you have in front of us. And he provided those because we asked for the questions.
If there are other questions, please send them to us. If we're missing stuff, that'd be great.
The proper thing to do, if these people call up, whether you like it or not, Mr. Moore, is that you need to make and record the conversation and then have it transcribed. So it becomes part of the public record of who you are specifically talking to. Have you ever seen this person? Do you know where this person is? What their motives are exactly? It's just some basic good business practices.
basic good business
Especially in today with the internet and the use of information that way, just good business practice.
No, it's not good business practice for a public agency to be recording somebody over the telephone.
Of course it is. You just tell the person that I'm going to record this conversation. If they
We
choose
have
not to talk to you,
respectfully
then they can
disagree.
hang up
We
the
have to
phone.
respectfully disagree. I am not gonna have somebody who is gonna determine our
That's fine.
future and
That's
have
fine.
them hang up the phone.
Yeah.
Hang up the phone.
I urge you to continue to do what you're doing.
Okay, well, hold on just a second.
Thank you very much.
What?
The questions, just
Well-
for clarification for you and
Let's
Grafton.
move on.
But the point is, if we don't have a record of what we told them, then we have no way of establishing that what they report is accurate and what we told them or not. So I can understand.
We don't have any control over their reports, Ms. Holloway.
Am I making bad?
They're not gonna let you see their report, Ms. Holloway. What they will give us, which is what they've done, is a summary of their findings. This is not something where you cuss and discuss and debate stuff.
I'm not suggesting that at all.
Well, I understand, but I've gone to bond ratings and everything else in San Francisco and New York, and I don't walk in with a tape recorder going.
Actually, they will provide a report for many.
The questions are,
That's absolutely bottom line. They're looking for money.
the questions are on agenda item 9.
Standard & Poor's is not looking for money, they are a rating agency.
It's under agenda number 9. It's on the yellow sheet with questions. And then it's also under exhibit 4. So you should have everything.
I didn't. You may have something I don't have. I mean, it's no big deal. It can just be sent to us.
Well, it's in the old packet, is where it is, the other packet that you have.
Exactly, it's under 9. That's what I told
It's in the original packet.
Yeah, it's under, that's what I said. It's a 9. We have everything. Can you continue, please?
I had a meeting with Mr. Collins. Oh, do you want to finish up with Carol with the Standard & Poor? Do you want to talk to them about the document that they provided?
Sure. Got a phone call late this afternoon. They have been through the committee, and have made their determination. The last time that we spoke with them, as far as I know, unless they called kind of interim before I got here, was when we did the refunding of the 2009 bonds. And we were rated at an AA minus at that time. So we've got kind of a good news, bad news. They have reduced our rating to A, but they are still considering us with our outlook of stable. And I do have copies of the report that I can share with you. The issues that they addressed were the fact that we had not had a rate increase in 3 years. The thing that they're looking at favorably is that we had the rate increase that was just approved last spring and the second year rate increase that will follow on. As we all know, they look at our ability to meet our debt covenants, and they look at what it would be without the rate stabilization. So they understand that we have rate stabilization to use in just such a case, but I think their concern was that we didn't react sooner with a rate increase.
And probably that we don't have a lot of rate stabilization left.
That doesn't seem to be a concern. They did, in their projections, determine that we would not need rate stabilization fund in the upcoming couple of years because of the rate increase. They also looked at our cash balances, and as we all know, those are going down, and that's significantly due to the system development charges fund ending balance because we're using that on projects, but our overall cash is down. When they first looked at it, it appeared that our capital reserve fund was restricted, but that is an internal restriction. Should we need it, the board could move some of that money to a usable place.
Do they not understand that SDCs are to be used for capital projects?
No, they absolutely do understand that, but because growth is slower and water use is down, then our SDCs are down. They understand that, but still looking at it from a district and a system perspective, without SDC money coming in, as we know, we will run out of SDC money to do capital projects. They also looked at basically it was the rate stabilization, the use of the rate stabilization, but they did like the fact that we have the rates increased and that we are cooperating with other districts.
So you'll send that to us?
I actually have copies that I can hand to everybody right now.
I got email them.
I got this after 5 today, so that's why it wasn't presented to you earlier.
Email them.
You have something purple.
That was, yeah, you have it. It's good.
Oh, no, I didn't get purple.
Yeah, you have purple.
Oh.
Well, that's why you had it and I didn't. I swapped out my yellow for my purple because I thought it was a whole new
There
package.
was 2 packages. We just had an update today
Oh,
for the
that's right.
stuff that came in late. The board had asked me to send whatever I had at the time that they were distributed, and then we do updates later.
Thank you, Carol.
As you know, we had a special board meeting, and we were talking about the general manager's goals and some of the things that we talked about at the beginning of my report are really the outcome of that. There are still some additional items that we need to work on and schedule another meeting for, and that's yet to be determined. I went to an SDAO breakfast, Metro breakfast, and it was put on a joint meeting with SDAO and the Community Investment Initiatives. And it is a group of people that represent both Clackamas and Washington counties. And the reason for the meeting was to give an overview of the Community Investment Strategic Plan that was completed in June of 12. And this is a cross-functional group of businesses, non-elected government officials, and community stakeholders who have formed an alliance in order to identify impediments to infrastructure needs and alternatives for funding for the bi-county area, which is Clackamas and Washington County. We were informed there was a lot of good information that they had gone out and looked at all of the utilities and the infrastructure needs within the 2-county area. And they factored in all of the SDCs, that the entities that reside within the 2-county area had access to, and also their capability of funding additional SDCs. And they said that the region still came up $25 billion short. And this is consistent with the meeting that I went to about 4 months ago, where the Oregon Society of Civil Engineers had essentially given the state of Oregon a D- in infrastructure funding. They did provide some additional data. They said that something that we all realize, that household income for the past 10 years within the region is declining, that Oregon as a state is ranked 23rd, that funding for infrastructure compared to the state of Washington the state of Washington is 11th, and the state of California, even with all of their budget problems, are number 3, so, which was surprising. It said that one of the problems that, one of the benefits or pluses for Oregon is that we have, of the 3 states, the lowest unemployment rate. But that's a double-edged sword, that we have people that are probably higher on the underemployed listing, even though people are working, they're not making. And they give a good example. They say, you know, an average construction worker is making $30 an hour, whereas people who are working in the service sector are essentially making 10. And so you really need one construction job or family wage job for every 3 service sector jobs. And I thought that was an interesting correlation. Yes.
Let me ask you, in this meeting, did Metro get any indication as to whether it has updated the population growth models? Because, of course, models that they've previously published are hopelessly out of date.
Metro was not a participant in this section, even though they call it a metro group.
Okay.
You know, they meant metropolitan, that's what they were talking about.
No, 'cause that would be very useful
They
information.
did indicate that a lot of their data came from Metro, which actually does the population projection in
Right. That's what-
relationship to Portland State University, which has a contract with the U.S. Census Department.
Right, that's what I was asking about.
Okay.
I'm familiar with that.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is that when they surveyed the taxpayers in the Tri-County area and asked what they saw as their #1 need in the area, the first thing that came out, which didn't surprise me, was obviously jobs. The second one was a safe community, and that was kind of 1 and 2. They said sustainability, which everybody talks about, was really, I think it was 3rd from the bottom of the list, which surprised me. I thought it would be a lot higher on the list.
It would if we had a better economy.
And I think, you know, hierarchy of needs, I think people are thinking about where am I gonna, where my next paycheck?
Right.
They said one of the problems that they saw when they were looking at how public entities were spending dollars is that both in the hard jobs, which are the construction jobs, family wage jobs, and in the service sector, where it is really through our contracting practice. They find that there's still a lot of work being contracted outside the region, and that's money that doesn't stay in the region. And so one of the things that they're going to be planning on is trying to get the word out, encouraging public agencies, which we all have local preference clauses that are not used a whole lot, to start using that so that that money can circulate within the communities rather than going outside the state. I think that was kind of an overview of what was talked about. I thought it was a very good meeting. It was well attended. There was probably 50 people there participating. You know about the Redland Road pipe break on June 23rd. This is another one of those where CRW staff was notified of the break around 2:30, and staff met around 4 o'clock at the site and was able to isolate the break there. We know that the time elapsed was 2.5 hours. We lost 91,000 gallons of water, and we're kind of estimating what the costs are for the repair, and we think that it's going to be in the neighborhood of around $20,000. And if you have more specific questions about that, Don is here to respond to that if you have questions. We've had several public records requests that we have responded to that came from the district attorney's office. We have complied with all of those, and we're now waiting to hear from the requesters as to whether or not they want those records. And the other document I think that Commissioner Sterling was asking about is that we've been notified and have received a report by Ms. Leachman. I received it yesterday. She has completed her legal review and has submitted her final report. And as you remember, the scope of this review was to determine if Commissioners Holloway and Sterling were functioning within the course and scope of their responsibilities as commissioners as it relates to the Old Bowley complaint. As I indicated, we received that yesterday and we're now reviewing it in order to determine what our next steps should be. So,
What does that mean, Mr. Moore? I mean, yes or no?
yes,
She must have come up with a conclusion.
She has a conclusion.
What is it?
I received it, so
What
did
is it?
Barbara. But
We,
what is the board?
the board has not authorized me to release the report. That's one of the items that I assume that the board is gonna talk about tonight is whether or not they wanna release the report.
Well, Commissioners Kemper and Kehoe, you have it, we don't, let us in on it.
Yeah, go make a copy of it, just like Carol handed out copies of what it is. Make a copy of it now.
The board, the majority of the board directed the investigation be done, which means that that investigation, only those that were not named in that investigation are privy to it. And
What?
Well, let's make this simple, Commissioner. Commissioner Sterling and I requested the board, under the terms of the tort law, to provide us with legal defense coverage. You, Commissioner Kemper, and at that time Commissioner Cardwell, referred it out to the investigator. The investigator
Which is
has
allowed.
made a report. So you are now in the position to tell us, yes, we were in course and scope according to her evaluation, or no.
I don't think we can do that.
Actually, we can't do that.
Well,
But, and I'll tell you why. Because it is an attorney-client privilege document.
well, then let me make this simple, Commissioner. Does it say that we were in course
I
of scope or
can't.
not?
We
Well,
can't.
okay,
I can't
so are you
disclose it.
saying that you will not tell us whether you're going to give us legal defense coverage? Or,
You can make the motion to have it released, but because of the terms and you can make it a public document, but the way the board motion was made, what was approved,
All
the
right,
fact that it's a attorney-client privilege document, I cannot release it. I can't release it to you, I can't release it to you.
all right,
If
then
you want
I,
to make the motion
all
to
right.
release it, you
I
can make the
move
motion.
that I move that the report be released.
I second it.
Adora,
Discussion?
oh, do you want discussion?
You know, I've long been a proponent of public information and of the value of it. I'm a little bit concerned about whether it's something we actually should release. You know, without a thorough reading of it.
Mr. Phillips has had the thing since Monday. He edited it the week before, the previous week. He had it and edited it and sent it back to Leachman.
I don't know.
You know that?
Yeah, I've got emails from him.
Okay.
I know that, and I also know that Mr. Phillips had problems, still having problems with his internet. And in order to get this issue before the board today, what I instructed Mr. Phillips to do is come to this office, have the report emailed to me so that we could review it, and now it's before the board. The board decides whether or not we talk about it, its contents, and whether or not we release it. That's all we're saying.
Well, there's a motion and a second.
Well, Adora, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Holloway,
Yes?
Commissioner Kemper,
I'm going to qualify my vote as that the need for public information kind of trumps some of my other concerns. I'll vote yes.
Commissioner Sterling,
Yes.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
That's all I need, so it will be released.
Okay, well.
Where's it at?
So perhaps Adora would be kind enough to make the copies, and I renew my question. Is Clackamas River Water, under or in tort law, going
I
to
haven't
provide us?
reviewed the letter, and I'm not gonna have a discussion on it until I've reviewed it.
Commissioner Kemper, how do you feel about it?
I think that once we have a chance to thoroughly evaluate this thing, we'll know.
You mean Mr. Phillips hasn't had phone contact with you this week or last week?
We're not talking about a conversation with Mr. Phillips, we're talking about this report.
Okay, well.
That once we look at it, we'll know.
Okay, well, you're not, that's not on the agenda, you're not gonna deal with it, so let's move on. Not complicated.
Commissioner Simons, I received, Barbara, did you send me your Commissioner
Oh,
Simons?
wait, there's something we gathered on
Oh,
Mr. Moore's
no, I
report.
didn't, I have it, I gave it to you.
There's more here if somebody wants it.
Lee,
I sent it to you by email.
yeah, I'm sorry, there's something that got skipped over in your report. That is the South Fork Water Board rates. It's your item G. I had sent you an email asking for the documentation on that, and you've also, when do you've got it, you provided a response, or we have 90 days to provide a response. You said you plan to put together a work session. I think we should deal with that. This is a very important issue because presumably we might be dealing with rates that start at the best July 1 this year, and we're well into August.
What I'm proposing.
We have a bug here. I'm not buggy. We have something flying around my head.
So I'd like to clear up one piece of business over the investigative report for everybody that's here. Before I go into and answer your questions, I'll come back to it. The document that you have on the CD, we have redacted employee names only. Just the employee name. So when you see a black line, what's underneath that is an employee name. Everything else is complete. The other thing, because of the lateness of the hour that we got the document, not tonight, but the lateness of the hour that we have the document, we need to go through and do the same thing to the attachments to the report. So you don't have the attachments on the CD, anybody who has those.
So
We will try to get those to you as soon as we can, because we have to go through, there's like 230 some pages of attachments. And we assigned one person today just to go through and try to get this ready in case the board wanted to have it. And, but we will get the other as soon as we can.
230 pages of attachments?
Yes.
Oh, that would be subsequent evidentiary material that was submitted to Leachman then, that she's including in her report, referring from the body of the report, referring to an exhibit.
Right.
Okay.
Right, all right. I just wanted to
So this is really incomplete.
It's incomplete as it relates, it's complete as it relates to the report, but it's
Now-
incomplete as it relates to
Now,
the.
do you have the capacity, Mr. Moore, to state if she agreed that we should be provided legal counsel on this Vance Foyle issue or not? Do you have that capacity?
We're not having any discussion on it.
I have capacity.
I'm asking you specifically. You seem to think it's very humorous to spend ratepayers' money this way.
Where do you get that from, Mr.
I get it from October 13th, 2011, the meeting.
Humorous?
Yeah, you seem to think it's humorous to spend ratepayers' money.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, you'll find out. So are you going to state that the Leachman affirms that the commissioners have
You
it?
need to review it. We're not having a discussion on it.
I just wanted to see what sort of a person we have here is all. He seems to find it very humorous to spend ratepayers' money inappropriately.
I think you
I
might
did
want
not
to read.
authorize Ms. Leachman to do this
I think you
investigation.
might
That was
wanna-
a board action, Mrs. Sterling.
And I
So
think
you
you
need to
might
get a
wanna-
mirror out and look at yourself.
And I think you might want to review that before you make any further statement.
Well, I don't have any problem with it at all. Sue me.
And
Sue
humor
me.
is sometimes a
For what?
response to
For being
stress.
stupid?
Okay, so we're gonna move on to South Fork. Lee,
I'm sorry.
we're gonna move on to South Fork, please.
Yes.
I like to get out of here like by 9:30, so if we could
Same
please
here.
proceed.
I did cover that I met with John Collins, and he has given us a proposal as to what they think the rate should be. We obviously disagree with the number, which is $1.04. We think that that is not accurate, but we need to have what I'm proposing that is on August 29th of this month, from 2 until 5, that we invite the board to a staff meeting where we would have FCS here to review with us the proposal. And that would also give the board an opportunity to ask questions as well.
And that'll have to be a notice meeting.
No, it wouldn't be.
I've been doing a lot of reading.
This is a staff meeting that we've had plenty of, Commissioner Holloway, and what we have done, we've done it in the past, you've participated in them. And what it is that because this is an ongoing negotiation, we're trying to keep an environment so that information can be discussed freely without decisions that will aid staff and hopefully aid the board in understanding what the issues are related to the South Fork proposal.
Will it be a staff meeting with board invited to
Yes,
attend, not a combined meeting?
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
So we'll be in the audience, essentially.
Mr. Kehoe?
Commissioner Howell?
Yeah, I just want to say on the record that my understanding of Oregon Public Record law and specific reading of the Attorney General's manual in connection with this, exactly this issue, is that even if it is a staff meeting that board members are attending and gathering information that the board will later use to deliberate toward a decision, it has to be publicly noticed.
Well, then I request that it be an executive session.
That's fine. I have no problem, I just want to be sure we're legal.
Then it would be a board meeting with.
It would be an executive session.
Yeah,
Executive
special
session.
meeting.
It would be a special executive session
Just like we have with Sunrise.
With a staff presentation.
with the staff presentation and the consultant presentation.
Yeah.
And as you know, in those meetings, the media is invited. They
But they
just can't
can't
record them.
No, I just want to keep us legal.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying that would be probably a better format to use. What I'm concerned about is that because we're in the middle of negotiations, that we're not publishing
Sure.
what the board and staff strategy would be in responding to South Fork's proposal.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I just want to be sure we didn't miss this.
How is it possible to have FCS there when we haven't even seen their contract yet? Are we going to give them another PO or something? Is that how it is?
We have them under PO now because they have helped us up to this point. Maybe you had asked the question before about what that expenditure was about as it related to South Fork. And what we can do is either issue another PO or we can extend the one that we already have. Because they did not spend the full amount of the previous PO.
And I would make the request that I've already made by email in connection with this meeting, that we have all of the documentation provided to us well in advance, so we can go over it.
We don't even know what the documentation is going to be at this point.
Oh, I know, but if the meeting is scheduled for August 29th, that the material be sent to us prior to the meeting, so we at least have a chance to read it and absorb it, and, you know, not have to try to understand it on the fly.
That's fair.
Because it may be rather complex.
Yeah, it will be. That's what I want everybody to see the same thing.
Okay, great, thank you.
Moving on to the next item, thank you, Lee. Commissioner assignments, I plan on keeping the assignments the same unless there's a motion, which I'll entertain.
You're just full of surprises, Commissioner.
No motion? Okay, moving on. Now, this was
Oh,
not.
I would just like to put on the record that I did make a request for Commissioner assignments, which Commissioner Kehoe has denied. And the board, as the board chair, she has the prerogative of making those assignments with the concurrence, with the consensus of the board under the terms of board policy.
Well, if all you need is a motion, I'll put forth the motion that your choice, I believe it was Oak Lodge and Sunrise.
No, Commissioner Kemper wanted Sunrise. I have requested Oak Lodge, Southfork Water Board, and MPOC.
I'll put forth the motion that those assignments be directed to you.
Second. Dora, can you call the vote, please?
Did you hear the assignments that she was requesting?
Oak Lodge, South Fork, and Sunrise.
No, Oak
Correct.
Lodge, Southfork, and
And
MPAC.
Impact, yeah,
MPAC.
'cause Kemper had
MPAC,
this on the-
Clackamas.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper?
Abstain.
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
And Commissioner Kehoe?
No.
Motion fails 2-1-1, or 2-1-1, yes.
Okay, moving on. Let's see, now I did not place this on the agenda, so I don't know, I believe the reimbursements. No, I did not place 10B on the agenda, so I don't know.
10B, what 10B is that we have a board policy. Let's see, 10A, 10B.
I don't think I have it.
Yeah, it's right after tab 10A, and there's, I think that there's one right behind the other.
You didn't bring it with you. You probably tossed it when you tossed 9.
I don't,
Mr. Moore, I'm going
I
to
don't even
ignore
have
Mr.
four.
Keel. I do not have anything beyond item 9. Nothing I know of.
Yes, you did.
Well, I mean, Commissioner,
oh, it's not a tab, it's a, gotcha.
It's
well,
behind tab
Dora was
10.
kind enough to bring it, so that's fine.
It was
This is
sent
my
out with the
entire
original
packet,
packet.
Except the yellow one that Mr. Moore replaced with a purple. So, anyway, thank you, Adora. I appreciate it.
Under board policies 1.6.4, it states that commissioner reimbursements from the prior fiscal year must be turned in by, in this case, July 12th of 2012. And so, and that was a revised policy that the board had implemented. And so I know we have some commission reimbursement requests. And my recommendation would be for the board, in order to consider those reimbursement requests, that they suspend that particular policy for purposes of staff being able to make those payments. What 1.6.C4 states is all requests for reimbursement shall be sent to the fax department. The document must be signed and detailed with dates and times for the meetings attended. All requests for reimbursement must be submitted prior to the first board meeting of the fiscal year.
Yeah, and that was my objection to it at the time. The rest of the board voted for it because it didn't say the first meeting of the following fiscal year. So as it actually reads, we'd have to submit the request at the beginning of the year. So the wording just didn't work.
Prior to the first board meeting of the fiscal year.
Yeah, it doesn't say the following fiscal year. It would have been so simple to fix it then, but we didn't.
I mean, I'm just telling you what it says, and really the only comment is, if you guys want your expense reimbursements processed, staff needs to have some guidance.
Some authority.
Authority to do that. And because we also, remember this discussion came up even before this revision, because we need to be able to close our books.
Right, that, yeah.
And we have at least 7 days after the end of any fiscal year
You wanna
give
before
the-
the first meeting.
There's
You
only-
might want to talk to her
There's
more
only one
specifically.
thing, yeah, there's only one thing I'd like to change on this motion, is to pay commissioner reimbursements as submitted, because sometimes commissioners get their math wrong. So it really should be approved as submitted, because I know that your department does make corrections.
Yeah, we do
Yes,
the
we do.
corrections, that's not our problem, it's just trying to get around
And I
this.
think this.
No, I understand that, but the way the motion is,
I think this as submitted means just for the meetings that have been turned in.
Stay corrected all the time.
And then if you want the reimbursements for other than these type of meetings, then you need to have a written document that would be associated with your expense report for those meetings as well.
Right, the reports that are required for the outside meetings.
So we still have some people who are submitting whatever they didn't submit for June or something like that. Is that
Well,
correct?
if it's for regular board meetings, then a report is not, as I understand the policy,
Right.
a
No.
report is not required.
Right.
But if it's for a meeting, an assigned meeting, like you guys just went through, then that would need to have a written report.
Mhm.
Commissioner Sterling, did you, I know that fax was, that this was, I believe, presented because of your reimbursement request. And does this situation address the suspension of policy? Well, making sure that
Our
people are
intention
getting
that
paid.
if you vote for this, if you approve this motion as we've written it, it would suspend the policy for, and I'm thinking for this time only, so that people could be paid and we can clear the books.
Yeah, we can suspend it for a time period certain.
Yeah, a date certain if you want to, and then I think with Mr. Sterling, I think what we need from you is just some paperwork done. And then we
Yeah, we're talking about W-9.
A W-2.
I'll send a W-9.
A W-4. Board members have to be treated per IRS rules as employees. They're a special class of employees. And this is something that many other districts and cities have been audited by the IRS. So you do have to be paid out of payroll. So it's not a W-9 and it's not a 1099. You'll submit a W-4 and you'll receive a W-2 at the end of the year.
But we had a large discussion about, and actually it was changed in the board policy in regards to whether commissioners are an employee or not.
They're a special class
A
of
special
employee.
class employee.
And I will tell you that typically 3 to 5 years ago, almost every governmental jurisdiction reimbursed their board members or city councilors
It wasn't taxed at that time.
via W-9 and a 1099. So they paid them out of accounts payable. The IRS came in, they audited, I believe, Tualatin Valley Water District, they audited Clean Water Services, they audited a couple of cities, and they said, absolutely not, these are employees. And what they're looking for, what the IRS frankly is looking for, is the Social Security tax and the Medicare tax
They get that in?
on your earnings. And so that's, it depends on how much the reimbursement is. If you don't get reimbursed very much and you just add it to your taxes at the end of the year, it's not sufficient to trigger that Social Security Medicare. So that's,
They did that
my
quite a while
understanding, that's
ago.
what
I
they're
used
looking
to
for.
officiate for the PIO. We got $50 a game. And they started having us fill out the same kind of paperwork. And it ended up the IRS owed me money because I could claim it as a second job, so I got all the mileage. At the time, I was working in Salem. So I got all the mileage from Salem to wherever the game was being played.
What's a PIL?
It's a basketball.
Plastic league.
PIL's basketball?
Oh, no, it's a league. They call it the Minnesota contribution. It's City of Portland.
So in regard to this, Commissioner Sterling is now submitting charges for, what, the whole year or so?
Yeah, I
That
just
you
filled it
haven't-
out
that
for
you
the
haven't-
year
that you-
for
That you weren't going to charge
the
reimbursement.
$50, yeah.
Okay.
So all we need is, like I said, a motion, I think, for it.
Just one quick question. We probably need to add some wording to it since it affects reimbursement of presumably all of us. We don't want to fall into the approving our own reimbursement. I guess this wouldn't constitute that.
Did you not submit yours for up through June?
This is just to change
I
policy,
think
it's
this
not
is-
to
This is not
Okay, I just wanted to be sure we were clear.
Yeah, but everything I had was submitted through June. True for you?
Commissioner Holloway, this would be a general, so I don't think you're voting for yourself specifically.
Okay, I just
You're
wanted to be sure we
yeah.
were clear on that. Okay. All right, then, I move that the board suspend the portion of board policy 1.6.4 relative to commissioner reimbursements, and I'll substitute authorize staff to pay commissioner reimbursements as submitted no longer than August 31, 2012.
Great.
Okay. Somebody gonna second it?
I will. I'll second it. I'll second it.
Commissioner Hall, Commissioner Holloway,
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper,
Abstain.
Commissioner Sterling,
Yes.
and Commissioner Kehoe.
yes.
Motion carries 3-0-1.
And Kenny, you have 11? Or do you need to have 10? You had an agenda item 11?
No.
It was on the Jackson.
Oh, I think that was the general manager's goals, but we're running out of time, so I'll just put it on the next one. Okay. Warren, public comment? You know the rules in regards to public comment?
My rules are their rules. Like Mr. Johnson's rules are my rules. About 3 or 4 months ago, I remember when we had asked for inquiry into IGA with the city of Johnson City for a contract or anything, but I've never seen one yet. And I don't know who's in charge of that, if it's Mr. Moore or Mr. Boyles on providing that contract. The IGA, water sales agreement.
Okay.
Actually, that's something I've asked for, either the minutes where the board approved.
Okay, this isn't discussion, this is a public comment.
Yes.
It is, I'm asking,
That's it.
not by request.
Okay, it's just a public comment. I'm not having a discussion on it. Do you have anything else to state during your comment?
If we had a call comment, no.
Okay.
Actually, my comment is a question. Did Mike Cardinal give the reason why he resigned?
Any other comments?
I guess my rules don't get answers.